football fans! What's going on, y'all? We are right back at it, talking the greatest freaking sport ever created in the history of history, college football. That's right, y'all. Welcome to our very special... I'm trying to find a really cool way to introduce this, but I can't, so my apologies. But welcome to our very special conference previews edition of Free and Out College Edition right here on IE Sports Radio, your directly for all that is sports. Tonight we are talking all the big ones, of course, the ones that we love to watch on TV because, well, those are the ones that really freaking show on TV. I wish they would show something on, but it is what it is. Regardless, we got the Power 5 for y'all here today, talking Pac-12, Big 12, Big 10, the SEC, and of course, the ACC. And there's this thing called the College Football Alliance now. You might have heard about it. We'll be talking about that tonight as well. I hope you're ready because we are bringing you a jam-packed hour of college football right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Welcome, college football fans. I'm so freaking excited to be here. Yes, I would probably say the other F word if we wouldn't get in trouble because I'm so that excited. Me especially because, well, for those of you who know, I definitely am trying not to do that no more. And my fiance's right behind me with the belt because she will hit me. So I'm really trying hard to not let those words slip out. My apologies. But I'm ecstatic. I'm so excited for football. Oh my gosh, college football is here. Yes, the NFL is here. Yes, it is. But we got some college football here tonight. And if this is, we are your kind of show. If you are a diehard, if you're the kind of cat that just likes to pay attention to like two teams in the NCAA, then go find another show, please. Because we're going to be talking about everything college football. All the good stuff. All the way from high school, the top recruits around the country. We're going to be talking all the goodies from junior college. That's right, y'all. JUCO, the Triple CAA, and the NJCAA. And, of course, all the fun stuff throughout the NCAA, Division III, Division II, Division I in the FCS, and Division I AA in the FCS, and Division I Single A in the FCS. Yeah, those are all the fun things. And, of course, talking the NAIA because, well, hey, you got to complete all 7, correct? So, like I said, if that's not your thing, well, then this probably isn't the show for you. But if you're a diehard football fan who loves football all the way from the high school level all the way up to any level in college football, well, then you have found the right place, and you might just want to stick to us the entire season because, well, this is a pretty awesome show. Sorry to toot our own horn, but we are quite the team, and we bring you all the goodies all throughout college and high school football. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. He, of course, is a super freaking diehard college football fan, much like myself. The man knows more than I do. I can't help it, man. The guy is a great dude. I'm glad to have him aboard, as always. This is, of course, the relaunch, the reboot season, if you will. So this is really season 1. And, we're rebooting this entire show. It's been around for a couple of years, as you heard in the first show a couple weeks ago. Couldn't get to you last week. Our apologies. I think it was the week before, too. We couldn't. But regardless, had some craziness going on in life. Regardless, though, we're back at it tonight to give you the previews. And next week, we're back on it full-time, of course. Well, we are on it full-time now, but we are on it next week, delivering you all the good stuff because we got college football coming your way. So, with that said, y'all, college football, as I mentioned, is getting started this coming weekend for some, I believe. And, of course, for others, we will be having... I think it's a double A that starts this weekend, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. So we got some college football starting this weekend, and of course, more starting next weekend. But we'll get to all that. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, once again, this is me, your host, Larry.B, your boy Larry.B, bringing it to you here live on a beautiful Wednesday afternoon. And I am joined with the other half of this show, the man, the myth, the legend, my boy, man. He is half of 3 and Out College Edition. He, of course, is the host of Set Point, the host and founder of Set Point, our volleyball show here on IE Sports Radio, as well as the host of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio. And the guys is a jack of all trades and master of plenty. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in the one, the only, Mr. Terran Rodriguez. What's going on, Terran? How you doing tonight, brother?
Hey, Larry.B. I'm doing really well. I'm ready to talk some college football for you. It's a beautiful day here, and I am born ready. Let's boogie, as you once said.
Let's boogie, y'all. As I mentioned earlier, you guys, if you don't like college football to the T, then please go find another show. And I'm telling you guys that straight up. Like, this is as harsh as it's going to get. My apologies, but it's just, that's all there is to it. If you don't like it, then get on out, y'all, because this is for the diehards. You might fall asleep if you're not a diehard, because this goes in deep to all the good stuff in college football. So, welcome everybody. Got to say what's up to the chat room. Big ups, of course, to Miss Gina G. Hey guys, have a great show. Appreciate you very much, Gina. We'll be talking Stanford and Cal, actually, in your neck of the woods coming up very shortly. But with that said, Terran, how the freak are you, man? Before we get the show going, man, how's your day? How's everything going for you, man?
It's going good, Larry.B. I am chilling out here in Newport Coast, and I am just loving this beautiful sunny day here. Nice little cross breeze. And after this, I'm going to be enjoying me some volleyball action.
Oh, boy. Terran's got some guys. I still got to check out your video, brother. But I know you did lots of great things, man. Terran's, like I said, jack of all trades and master of plenty here at IE Sports Radio. So glad to have him aboard. And, of course, always so excited to have him a part of this. And you're enjoying some great weather out there, man. I'm not too far from Terran. I'm about 60 miles, 50-some, 40-some, somewhere right around there, between there. Inland, of course, in the IE and the Inland Empire, close to wine country. So we are, of course, here in the Southern California vicinity. So with that said, Terran, let's start some things off, man. You know, we always like to start high school first, so let's get this show going within this first hour. High school football, man. We got some good things going. So far, I got to give a big shout-out here. Huge shout-out, man. I'm very proud of this team, man. Of course, this is my high school, my alma mater. I attended this place. I coached here a couple years back. Then I just realized, well, I can't be an athlete at the same exact time as coaching. Can't do that. But I do got to give a big shout-out, y'all, to the Paris Panthers. That's right, y'all. My Paris High School Panthers defeated Compton Centennial 28-8 at home this past Friday. So I just got to give a big shout out to my alma mater starting things off this year, man. How about you, Terran?
Well, for me, my alma mater didn't quite get the W. Newport Harbor, unfortunately, fell to Yorba Linda 26-14. But Yorba Linda is a very good team. I think that defense of theirs is underrated. I actually was reporting on Fountain Valley football, which picked up its first win under new head coach David Gutierrez as they beat Valencia of Placentia 14-6. And their defense was on point as well.
Well, definitely the good schools, certainly good schools. And I just got to say, man, big ups to some of the teams, some of these big teams this week, man. This is some good stuff. I know some of these teams got underway. Actually, St. John Bosco just got underway, didn't they? They defeated, they just had their victory, over Central. Which Central, of course, is in Miami, Florida. So those are the kind of games these big-time schools play. Okay, Paris is not in the Newport Harbor type of. I know you guys are a little bit higher than us for sure, but the big boys, as you know, modern day, of course, up north in Gina's neck of the woods, St. John Bosco, De La Salle, the legendary De La Salle, the Streak. Of course, you got to check that out. For anybody who's never seen When the Game Stands Tall, please go watch it. Listen to back in season 1 of the Sports Couples Perspective with my beautiful fiance Cecilia. Her and I recapped that in one of our shows, and that was the only movie, by the way, in the entire series that she actually gave an A+ to because she liked it that much. And it's a great movie. It's a great, inspiring story. So De La Salle, of course, great football, but. St. John Bosco, 35-12. Nice victory to start things off over the Florida team at home. So big ups to that St. John Bosco team out of Bellflower. Also, Thompson, Alabaster, actually, out of Alabaster, Alabama. They will have their first victory over Oxford, 55-0. My goodness, who is that, Trine? I'm sorry, Terran. I had to bring up Trine from that Division III like a couple years ago when we were hosting the show. Bishop Gorman will get their first victory of the season, defeating St. Louis High School. No, that is not St. Louis, Missouri. It's actually, of course, the St. Louis High School out of Honolulu, Hawaii. As Gabriel Iglesias would say, yes, it's Hawaii, not Hawaii, because, yeah, I got to pronounce it right, y'all. So, getting that nice victory, 42-21 coming out the gates, so they get that big victory. Center Grove Trojans out of Greenwood, Indiana, over there in Justin Lahr's neck of the woods. Make sure to catch Justin Lahr every Saturday. Show them some love with high-octane entertainment, talking Indiana sports. They got their first victory, defeating Warren Central 38-14. So let's take a quick look at a couple more schools here. Servite, over there in your neck of the woods, Terran. This is, of course, one of the bigger schools in the country. The Servite Friars getting their first victory over Edison. And Edison is nothing, as Terran would say, nothing to sneeze at. Well, Edison, they certainly beat down Edison, y'all, 54-14. Definitely a big victory there. So, yeah, big victory there for Servite. And a few more schools. St. Xavier out of Cincinnati will get their first victory. Lakota West, over Lakota West, 31-14. And a few teams here. Two more. Corner Canyon. The Corner Canyon Chargers out of Draper, Utah will have their second game. They actually will have their 2-0 now on the season. This last past week, defeating East 42-7. So big ups to Corner Canyon out of Draper. And then one team this week actually did lose in the top 25, Terran, and that is, of course, Central. As we talk about the Central Rockets out of Miami, Florida, as we know earlier, they lost to St. John Bosco 35-12. But Central was the 24th ranked team in the country, and, well, you know, St. John Bosco is the number 3 ranked team in the country. So, yeah, it's not necessarily, it's a loss, but, I mean, hey, you lost to a freaking juggernaut. So, Terran, any thoughts, comments, anything on those games?
So that Servite Edison game, that was actually a last-minute reschedule on Edison's part as well as Servite's part, because Edison was actually supposed to play Venice of Venice Beach, but unfortunately Venice had to enter COVID protocols. So Edison needed a game, Servite needed a game, and lo and behold, those two decided to play. And this was a great test for Edison coach Jeff Grady and his team, considering if they're going to win the Sunset League, which is basically the league I cover for Sunset Rewind, which definitely check that out. Check out some of my work. They're going to need to start playing some tough opponents, and they've got a big plate of tough opponents on their schedule. They won't see any tougher than Servite. That's the good news for them. But they're going to need to be fully battle-tested. And then Servite obviously proves that they are one of the top teams in the nation, if not top teams in the state. So there is pretty much that right there. And I think it was a good idea for Edison to schedule Servite. And a team that didn't get to play, which is pretty much near the top of the food chain in terms of the best team in the nation, is Mater Dei. They actually scrimmaged against Corona Centennial. The two were actually supposed to play in week 0, but Centennial didn't meet the required number of practices to play, as we talked about it a couple weeks ago. So their game eventually turned into a scrimmage, which unfortunately was a bummer, but at least the two teams got to feel each other out to see how the two teams will stack up when it comes to playing this upcoming season.
Well, great stuff there, as always, coming out the gates with high school football. Once again, you guys, we are going to keep an eye, of course, throughout the season on some of the big-time athletes who have the best games. I mean, trust me, we are going to be looking at all of them. And we want to make sure that, we want to make sure we cover the best of the best, and of course, everybody we can, because you never know who could be that next star coming out. And before you know it, we're talking about them here on College Edition. Terran, we could be talking about them on Saturdays on College Edition, playing in college. And then we might even be talking about them in a primetime face-off, or, of course, in the regular 3 and Out, talking about the recap of the week, or the preview coming up in the coming years, Terran. So you know those stories all too well. So do I, man. There's a lot of great talent, of course. And just got to say it, man. I've got a lot of good stuff going on in college football. So, well, in high school school as well, going on into college football. So with that said, Terran, let's go ahead and rock and roll, man. We had a little bit of a preview for all of these Power 5 conferences coming up. By the way, big shout out to G McG in the chat room, by the way. She says here, go Bears, go Cardinal. We'll be talking about them momentarily as we start off with the Pac-12. But Gina says, Terran is the bomb of volleyball action. Absolutely, he sure is. And she says also, my cousin Danny went to De La Salle. He played Frost football only. I didn't know they had a Frost team. Well, Frost Soft, I guess. What do you want to call it? Freshman soccer. That's crazy. I didn't know they did not have a freshman team. But that's pretty cool. Well, big ups to Danny. That's pretty freaking sweet. To know that you even put on that jersey, that uniform, and that you actually made it is an accomplishment enough. All right? So it's pretty freaking sweet to know that. So big ups to Danny. So with that said, Terran, let's get things going, man. Pac-12 action. You and me, both over here on the Pacific Coast. You know we're going to start because we're West Coast biased, because for some freaking reason the rest of the country is East Coast biased. So wrong. We're going to pull it back this way because that's just how we do it. So with that said, Terran, let's get this thing going, man. Talking about Pac-12 football. Now, you sent me a whole bunch of stuff earlier in the chat. I do my best to keep up with as much as I can, but the work has been crazy. So always great to have somebody like Terran to fill me in on the good stuff. And of course, we're talking about the Alliance later on today at the end of the show, towards the end. But Terran, let's start things off, man. We have a pretty meaty conference over here. I asked everybody a couple weeks ago to put in who they thought was going to win it this year, and we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to go ahead and read off some who thought what. But Terran, go ahead and start us off, man. Pac-12 football. Who are you looking at this year and why?
So when it comes to the Pac-12, there are a lot of good teams in that conference. First of all, you have Oregon, the reigning champion. They have a lot of good position players. They did lose quite a bit of talent to the NFL draft, and they lost some to transfers, but they still boast a formidable team on both the offensive front and the defensive front. Their big question mark is their quarterback position, as their quarterback, Tyler Shuck, transferred to Texas Tech. So that is the big question mark right there. But other than that, Oregon is loaded at pretty much every position, and they seem to be the favorite to win the Pac-12. It seems like everyone is picking them over USC. But my other question for Oregon is, can they withstand Washington? Because that's another good team. And they've had a few transfers in and out here and there, but honestly, Washington could present a big challenge to them. They have done a great job. I believe their coach's name is Jimmy Lake. Regardless, their coaching staff has done an excellent job. And believe it or not, they were the team that was supposed to play USC in the Pac-12 championship. But because of COVID protocols, they unfortunately got forced out and Oregon got put in. So there's that. I think it's going to boil down to those two when it comes to the Pac-12 North. But as for the Pac-12 South, you have USC, who is pretty much the heavy favorite. I mean, it seems like it's a unanimous favorite, as they boast a lot of talent. Keaton Slovis is there at quarterback. And then he also has great receivers like Drake London. I hear the USC's tight end is looking good as well, and he's kind of turning into like a mini Gronk or George Kittle or whatnot. They do have a few injuries sustained to their defense and some of their other players, but for the most part, I don't think they're major injuries, as it looks like USC is preparing for a big season. The big question is, can they stay consistent? Because some of their games, they weren't as consistent as everyone thought they'd be. Like, they had to come from behind wins against teams such as UCLA, Arizona State, and Arizona. But for the most part, I think this USC team has potential. It's just all about putting it all together and finding ways to not have to get into those close games. They do have somewhat of a challenging schedule, but I think this USC team has the potential. And their big key date is probably against Notre Dame. That's their biggest test. But Notre Dame lost just as much players to the NFL draft, such as Ian Book and Tommy Tremble, to name a few, just like USC did. So we'll have to see. And don't sleep on Arizona State and Colorado, and Utah looks potent to have a bounce-back season. And UCLA under Chip Kelly looks pretty solid as well. So I think the South is a little bit more up for grabs, despite USC being a unanimous favorite. So we'll have to see which USC shows up to the party.
Very nicely said, Terran, as always. That's why you're here, brother. Appreciate you, man. And I actually got all conferences written out. I think last year, of course, I don't think much is going to change. COVID was kind of weird and it screwed everything up. So I don't think things are going to change too much. Of course, that's kind of a scapegoat for me because I didn't watch a lot last year, and this year it's just rough. I'll definitely get back on it this year. But my entire conference looks like this in the Pac-12. I look, y'all, I'm an SC fan, so my freaking apologies for getting excited for my team. They actually look very good. I really think they can win the Pac-12 South this year. Utah, solid. They're going to probably be one of the biggest threats in the South to USC. Constantly strong team here. Some good players to watch out for, by the way, at Utah, but no cigar. But then I have Colorado. Big ups, man. My old coach from Riverside Community College about 10 years ago, Darren Cheverini, at offensive coordinator, done many great things over there. They have produced some great talent. I'm actually high on the runner Alfie Run this year. I like Colorado, and I want to see them do well. Do I think they're going to beat out SC or Utah? No. But they might actually beat out the rest of the South. I say might rather loosely because I don't know if they really will. But it's wishful thinking, at least in my opinion, supporting my old coach and just saying that I think this is a good school. So they're right there in the mix, and I got them at third. But Arizona State, Herm Edwards, I know a lot of crap happened there recently, but regardless, this is a very good football team. Herm Edwards is the man. He's a likable guy. He's a player's coach, in my opinion. I'd love to play for Herm Edwards myself because he seems like a great football mind, a great guy, just a great person overall. So really excited for Arizona State this year. That could be them at third, but I got them at fourth. Chip Kelly, I'm sorry. I just don't like UCLA. But regardless, I would give them the props they deserve if I thought they were good enough. Regardless, I don't know if they're going to be that good this year. But I do think they might be better than Arizona, which, of course, Arizona isn't that good. They haven't been that great since Scooby Rhett was there. Yeah, let's go ahead and date that. So I'm just saying, they haven't been that good of a team, so I got them right in the caboose here. Then, moving on into the North, this is going to be hard, so cover your ears, Gina. But look, y'all, Oregon is, yes, they are supreme right now in this division, I believe. They're going to be better than Stanford, Oregon State, Cal, and Washington State. Now, Terran had a great point earlier. Washington, they are no team to sleep on. If you sleep on the Washington Huskies, they'll probably be the team to annihilate you. Do not do that. Oregon is definitely going to be a strong team this year. I believe it's going to be between them and Washington, but I do have Oregon edging them out. Then I have Washington. Then Stanford. The Cardinals are a good school. Good school. And I really feel like this is a very good football team this year. But they're not going to be better than Oregon and Washington, and that's just blatant. I'm just not going to go further than that. But Oregon State, I think, is actually going to not be that bad, Terran. They had a decent season last year. Was it that great? No. Were that many games? No. But there was some kind of promise. Cal, I just don't see much happening there, at least at the moment. And then Washington State, man, don't they wish they still had their boy, man, and I hate to say this, but, Gardner Minshew was the last time they were pretty solid, and they haven't been that good since. So what are we going to get? So when it comes down to it, that's how my Pac-12 will go ahead and roll out, and I do have SC over Oregon in the Pac-12 championship because it's my team, so I don't really give a crap. But regardless, I like how you picked it. In the South, you had USC, Arizona State, Utah, UCLA, Colorado, Arizona, and in the North, you had Washington, Oregon, Stanford, Cal, Oregon State, Washington State. So pretty similar, good stuff there. By the way, Davidson Crooks will be taking Oregon, of course, part of the IU Sports Radio family here, host of Fast Break, along with Ontarius Law. And we had a few more different picks, but I believe Seth Eves, as a matter of fact, of USRN actually did pick, if I'm not mistaken. He said Oregon over Utah in the Pac-12 championship. So all good stuff there, and I'd love to elaborate more, but unfortunately, Terran, we only got an hour, so we've got to move forward here. But any last short and sweet comments? Oh, and by the way, Brad Buckingham, die hard here. Of course, he's the host of our Northwest Territory Sports here on iSports Radio. It says Oregon over USC for the title, and Marcus Lowe's great, of course, picking USC to win this year. But any tic-tac size comments, questions, anything like that at the end of this segment?
So you mentioned Oregon State being pretty good. Today, the 17th day of practice or training camp, their defense dominated. So I actually agree that Oregon State could be a possible threat. It all depends on if they can move on from their star running back, who is now in the NFL. And then I also heard today that USC is slated to play LSU in 2024 in Allegiant Stadium.
Hey.
So that's going to be fun considering the alliance just occurred. So if Ed Ogeron does stay as LSU's coach, we could be seeing a possible USC Ed Ogeron reunion, which would be quite the interesting headline right there. So we'll have to see what happens going forward. So other than that, I think it's pretty much straightforward.
I think so as well, and I'd love to go into some players here, but of course, Athlon Sports, big ups to them. This was written by Kyle Kensling back on May 7th, so I'm not even sure if some of these players are still there, but regardless, he pointed out a couple different, I'm going to go off some draft prospects coming up for each division off of this website, and I believe they're all Kyle Kensling's off of his articles. But a couple big players to watch. Drake Jackson, of course. Terran, you and I know him a little all too well. It's the 6'4", 255 monster, 255-pound monster that is defensive end/linebacker out of USC. Definitely be watching for him this year. Johnny Johnson, the third, wide receiver out of Oregon. 6 foot, 199, but the kid is a freaking beast. Jackson Kirkland, the big boy, tackle out of Washington. The reason why they can run so well, one of the biggest reasons. 6'7", 310 pounds of fury. So just saying, some big time players here. Devin Lloyd, linebacker out of Utah. Another big-time player in the Pac-12 right now. But I gotta say, one of the biggest players to watch, and he may be underrated, but Trent McDuffie, corner out of Washington. 5'11", 195 pounds, but watch what this guy can do. Very excited about some of these players. Also, Keaton Slovis out of USC. Seems like yesterday he was a freshman playing, and now he's a junior. So, 6'3", 215 pounds. Player to look out for. So a few of these players here. Terran, before we go ahead and switch on over to the Big 12, any players that you want to watch this year in the Pac-12?
So obviously all eyes are going to be on Keaton Slovis to seeing on if he can take that next step for USC, because believe it or not, the Pac-12 North has dominated when it comes to winning the Pac-12 championship. There's only been one time where the Pac-12 South has won the Pac-12 championship, and that was when USC won it with Sam Darnold. I think it was back in 2017. Yes, it was 2017. So all in all eyes are pretty much going to be on him. I believe deep yard Dorian Thompson-Robinson from UCLA is also going to be a prospect to watch for. So those are just a few of many prospects to watch for. And then also all eyes in terms of coaches are going to be on David Shaw. I know most people are probably going to say Clay Helton should have everyone's eye on in terms of the Pac-12, but David Shaw, I think, a great coach in the Pac-12 should possibly have their attention on when it comes to being a spectator, considering he is a fantastic coach. I don't understand why he gets so much backlash. Like, every team goes through their ups and downs and their rebuilding stages. So we'll have to see what happens with Stanford going forward.
I agree with Aaron. So let's move on here to the next one, man. The Big 12. Now, this is always a fun one to watch. I don't understand how this division, this conference, it's a good one. Some people I know, some teams left it. I know it used to be the Big 12, now it's the Big 10, haha, get it, haha. Okay, anyway, there's only 10 teams in it, we get it, and it's still the Big 12, haha. But regardless, there's still some good football in this division, in this conference. I keep calling it a division, in this conference. So this one won't be, at least in my end, it won't be very long. But we'll go ahead and I'll start this one off. I went ahead and gave my, as I did for all of the conferences a couple weeks ago. And Oklahoma, I just feel is going to be the fury of this division. Gosh darn it, of this conference. I feel like right now Oklahoma has everything they need. Nick Bonito, the linebacker out of Oklahoma, he's not necessarily the boss, but the guy's a freaking beast. Definitely a guy to watch out for. Kennedy Brooks as well, running back out of Oklahoma. Just very great athletes here. Eric Gray, another running back. Seriously, you guys, they have a great defense. They have lots and lots and lots of talent. I just don't see us going any other way. So I did take Oklahoma over Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship here. And I do feel like Oklahoma State has a lot of talent as well. You have guys that are very, very, very good to watch. Trace Ford, an edge rusher that I think a lot of people are going to be really satisfied with seeing him play. And more than anything, somebody's going to be really excited on draft day, because I think he might even be a first rounder, maybe a second rounder. Maybe I'm being optimistic, but the guy is a good athlete, and I really do feel like he could be somebody coming out this year that a lot of teams have their eye on coming out. Also, Trey Sterling, we all know who that is, safety out of Oklahoma State as well. So I'll give a few big names here also from, as I mentioned earlier, this is actually the May 6th, 2021. This is from Nicholas Ian Allen, of course, of Athlon Sports, in his article here, taking a look at some of the top prospects. So, with that said, Terran, I went ahead and gave it like this: Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, then Iowa State, Texas, West Virginia, TCU, Baylor, Kansas State, Texas Tech, and Kansas. That'll be my Big 12. Terran, what you talking, man?
So for the Big 12, it's probably and most likely going to boil down to Texas and Oklahoma. I know last year was a bit of a merry-go-round with Oklahoma State, I think Iowa, but all in all, I think Oklahoma and Texas are going to be back on top, and I think those two will most likely be the top titans of the Big 12. No offense to the other teams, but everyone else pretty much lost quite a bit. But the reason being is because Oklahoma and Texas are these two magnets when it comes to drawing in big time names. And you look at Oklahoma, they have Spencer Rattler, who is a great quarterback, and then you also have Texas, who never rebuilds. They never rebuild. They reload. And honestly, I think that it has to boil down to those two. It'd be rather surprising if if both of those teams were in the championship match. The big question for me is, can Kansas actually win a conference game? Because they have struggled in the Big 12 for the past few years. And I think it was last season, they didn't even win a match, which unfortunately was disappointing. But for them, the only place they can go is up. And honestly, I think Kansas could potentially win a game, but they're going to have to be on their A game, if you ask me.
Absolutely, man. And this is going to be a very good conference to watch, just because of the fact that Oklahoma's in it. And I feel like right now they're the cream of the crop, man. So overall, Darren, I named a few big time players there. I'll have a few more to add. But who are you looking at this year in the Big 12 and why?
So I'm looking pretty much, all eyes are on Spencer Rattler, if you ask me. Yeah. He is definitely going to be a top prospect in the NFL. And I wouldn't be surprised if I'm pretty sure he's declaring for the draft this year, or after this year. So honestly, it's got to be Spencer Rattler as one of the top few players. And I think Oklahoma is set for the future, just because if those that remember last year, they signed Malachi Nelson, who is a class of 2023 prospect, to their roster. He signed with them, so he committed, as well as his wide receiver, Mekhi Lemon. So when it comes down to Oklahoma, I think they're in great shape, but all eyes at the current moment are on Spencer Rattler for me.
I agree, Terran. This is a very unique young man to watch. Definitely a player that we could see going very high next year. And, certainly one of the better players in this entire conference. So, yeah, overall, I mean, there's a couple of different players to look at. But, yeah, we know that Rattler is basically pretty much the cream of the crop coming out. I would like to point out just a few more players. And as I said earlier, Trey Sterling's a hard hitter. The guy is a Scud missile type of strong safety. Somebody that my Raiders can definitely benefit from, a lot like Abrams, a Scud missile type of cat. Plays like him a lot, I would say. And also, Sean Mathis, I don't want to butcher his name, but another edge rusher at TCU. You know me, I'm an edge rusher type of guy. I love that defensive line. Certainly, it's another big-time player to watch out for this season. So, next up, Terran, we're going to transition some gears here. And I know y'all no breaks tonight. Our apologies. But we just want to get through all the good stuff and talk some football with you guys, of course. So, with that said, and Gina says here that our broadcast is a little scratchy. Our apologies, but that's technology. So, our apologies, Gina, and everybody listening. But, Big Ten sports. All right. The Big Ten is always fun. Seriously, it has been fun covering the Big Ten for years, of course, talking about this conference. I have it very simple. Ohio State is just the boss. There's nobody here that, I mean, Penn State's like the only team that I think can even contest them. Wisconsin was that team a few years ago. Wisconsin's kind of lost a little steam. But other than that, Terran, there's seriously nobody else that is going to, and definitely not Michigan. And I'm sorry to everybody out there who's a Michigan fan. I don't even have them in the top 5. I actually have them in the basement of the East. I'm sorry, but I just don't see anything happening with them very much. But very quick for me. In the West, I have Iowa, Northwestern, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Nebraska, Purdue, and Illinois. And for the East, Ohio State, Penn State, Indiana, Maryland, Rutgers, Michigan State, and Michigan. And then I have Ohio State over Iowa in the Big 12 championship. So realistically, there's just not much more that I can see than, you know. Oh, and by the way, Seth Eves to take Oklahoma over Iowa State in the Big 12 championship. So big ups to him for replying to that a couple weeks ago when I put that out. But yeah, I'm just saying, there's really nothing more to go. I mean, there's some very good players, but to get to. But I want to go ahead and get your thoughts on this, Terran. I know mine are just the Diet Coke version. If you want to go into more depth, Terran, you certainly can. But let us know, man, your thoughts this year on the Big Ten.
So when it comes to the Big Ten, the East is clearly a loss for Ohio State, and Indiana does return a good chunk of its players. They do return their quarterback, and give credit to Indiana. They pretty much battled Ohio State to the nitty-gritty. Unfortunately, Indiana just made one mistake too many. And then also it didn't help that Ohio State had this great quarterback named Justin Fields. So Ohio State is my pick for the East. The West is so all over the place. There's no clear-cut winner. Last year was Northwestern. I don't know who to pick from the Big Ten West. It's kind of like anyone can win it. I initially picked Wisconsin. I just had a tough time picking a winner, but if I had to pick, I'd probably say Wisconsin. I can somewhat see Illinois doing well in the conference. Maybe Iowa. Northwestern could have a tough rebuilding year, but they have a great coach in Pat Fitzgerald. But overall, the Big Ten West is wide open. Like, the Big Ten East is more so Ohio State as a heavy favorite. Indiana could sneak up on them, but for Ohio State, they're that team that just never rebuilds. They reload. And it'll be fun to see how they'll be able to tussle with some of their other conference foes, such as Michigan and Penn State. Like, those two teams last year were a big belly flop. So we'll have to see what happens.
Absolutely, Terran. And how about some players for you to watch?
So for players for me to watch, honestly, I didn't really get a chance to look at the players, but the eyes will probably be on C.J. Stroud, who's actually a Southern California quarterback. He is going to be the starting quarterback for Ohio State, according to a lot of reports, and I think he can rise to the occasion. And something that has been quite astounding is that Southern California's quarterbacks have been taking over. Because you look at the SEC that we're about to get into, Bryce Young is going to be the quarterback, and you have C.J. Stroud, and then in the ACC, which we're about to get into, we have DJ Uiagalelei, and I think there's one more Southern California quarterback that we'll be seeing that's out of state that will be starting. So just goes to show you that, who knows, maybe Southern California QBs are a cut above the rest. Just a little food for thought action on my part. But DJ Stroud is kind of my guy to watch for because I feel that's an interesting pick for Ohio State to start out at quarterback. But I think Stroud can make some strides. So we'll see.
Absolutely, man. There's some great football. I'm telling you, man. It's really, really good stuff in this division. I mean, and that's basically, as I said earlier, due to one team, really. Yeah, there's other good football in the division, in the conference there really is, but the big monster, of course, aboard is going to be Ohio State. I love how you said it. They don't rebuild, they reload, because that's exactly what this team does. So, with that said, let's take a look here at where we at. The top, at some top players that I'm really looking forward to this year. Overall, you don't don't really got to go too far to see some of these big-time players, as it's very clear, of course, written here. The article, we'll go ahead and click on it real fast and get some of these top athletes, of course, if my phone would want to participate. But, yeah, I mean, realistically, we know that the Big Ten this year has tons of talent. Yes, a lot of it's coming from Ohio State, but written here by Kevin McGuire earlier this year on May 5th. You got to take a look, man. Cinnamon Banks, beast corner out of Ohio State, certainly awesome. David Bell, wide receiver out of Purdue, very underrated. Tariq Castro-Fields, corner out of Penn State. I mean, really, there's a lot of big players out of Penn State, actually. You had Dotson, I want to make sure his name there as well, wide receiver coming out. Zach Harris, another player that I think could go pretty high, actually, defensive end out of Ohio State. There's a couple more, but realistically, I just feel like those are probably some of the heavy hitters, and certainly pretty much half of Ohio State's roster is something to just count on that they're going to be damn good this year. So that's just all there is to it. Terran, anything to add for the Big Ten before we move on to the SEC?
I think it's pretty much just everyone versus Ohio State. And until we get that one team that actually knocks them off, I don't really see Ohio State pretty much just losing. So, like as Andrew Hankenbaugh would put, it's Ohio versus everybody. So, just an honest opinion.
No, you're absolutely right. Ohio versus everybody, because, well, I just think it's funny that our very own Andrew Hagenbaugh will we'll throw that out there, man, as you said it. Ohio versus everybody, man. You're absolutely right. So let's move on here to this next conference that everybody just seems to love so much because, well, they play the best dang football out there. I love it. You love it. We love it, y'all. The SEC. This is certainly probably the absolute best place to find college football because, well, it's amazing. There's lots of great teams, lots of big-time talent, and there's really no other way to say it than if you want players that are the most ready for the NFL, this is where you want to go. So, with that said, my quick and dirty SEC. In the West, I have Alabama, of course, because who else? Texas A&M could be a close second. LSU, not too shabby. Auburn, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and Arkansas has a lot of problems. They've got to get through them. They've just got to recruit. And then in the East, I think Georgia actually could be the team to beat this year, as per usual. At least, I mean, recently, Florida has gotten themselves up there. But then I have Florida, Mizzou, Kentucky, Tennessee, South Carolina, and Vandy. Those are just my picks. Of course, Alabama over Georgia in the SEC championship, in my opinion. It's not because I don't like any other team, it's just because it's Alabama. And, well, as long as Nick Saban's there, it's kind of like as long as Belichick's in New England. That's kind of how I see things. So, Terran, how do you see the SEC this year?
So, obviously, the West is going to be all Alabama. Like, they have a great quarterback in Bryce Young, which you and I are both familiar about. And basically, Alabama is the juggernaut of this program. They just don't rebuild, and they have other players pick up the slack and whatnot. So it's absolutely amazing of what they do. Everyone doesn't like it, but you gotta actually go out there and beat them. And as for the SEC East, it's quite the unusual turn of events. It's totally all over the place. You have Florida, which lost Kyle Trask and Kyle Pitts. You have Georgia, which is a possible favorite with J.T. Daniels. That could possibly be someone to watch for. And then it's pretty much just all over the place with Kentucky, Missouri, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt. So, if I had to pick, I'd probably say Georgia. I'm not just saying that just because J.T. Daniels and West Coast bias. I think Georgia has the potential to win the SEC East. Their problem is they're going to have to beat the buzzsaw that is Alabama. And it's just something you can't really you got to actually beat them. They don't beat themselves and whatnot. So I think it's going to be Alabama versus Georgia in the SEC championship with Alabama coming out on top.
Yeah, Alabama's just going to be they're the top dog, man. I mean, there's really, really no other way to go. So, after that, there are some players to watch, which I clearly see. Uh, some of these players just not some, Terran. I mean, seriously, it's almost all of them that are going to at least make their way to the NFL. Now, how long they stay there is on them, but realistically, Terran, it's not easy. I mean, it's not hard to see that, the SEC makes up a lot of the NFL, even the bottom feeders. It's kind of funny. A good friend of mine, Josh, at the gym a couple days ago, I was talking to him, actually yesterday, and it's kind of funny because we were talking about, the NFL, and, he was talking about fantasy football, and I was like, yeah, well, no, this player. And he brought up what I love to bring up all the time is that, nobody sucks in the NFL. It's just, teams are better than others and everything. And it's funny because he was like, it's kind of like low-key with Thor. He's like, I said it, I'm like, they're basically like on the god level, but they're just like lesser gods. And he started busting up, and he was like, it's kind of like Loki and Thor. He's like, he's a god, but he's just not that good of a god. He's not that powerful, but he's still a god. You know what I mean? So it's kind of funny to think that. It's kind of, I know it sounds funny, but it's the truth there. And I mean, think about it, man. Really, the SEC is like the cream of the crop, and the majority, it's funny to think that second and third stringers from the SEC can go to the conference and start and probably break records. I mean, seriously, Darren, do you think so?
Oh yeah, for sure. And the SEC also revolves around good coaching, primarily from Nick Saban, who, as you know, he has NFL experience, having coached with Bill Belichick and whatnot back when they were with the Cleveland Browns. And then, I totally agree. I think even the worst players from the SEC could have great potential in the NFL. And I don't really think there's a worst player in the SEC, just because if you get to the college level, you basically aren't considered a bad player at all. So, and then once you get to the NFL, there are no such thing as bad teams and bad players and whatnot. So, all in all, I think the SEC is the cream of the crop, the creme de la creme, as most people say. So, I think the SEC is king.
No, they most certainly are. And, of course, some of the best teams to watch, of course, players, but written by Rob McVay of May 4th this year. Once again, due on Athlon Sports. Jordan Battle, safety out of Alabama, big-time name to watch. Even though Arkansas isn't that great, they have Traylon Burks, wide receiver out of Arkansas, which is somebody to watch. Matt Corral, we'll put him quarterback out of Ole Miss. Brenton Cox, of course, Brenton Cox Jr., linebacker / edge rusher out of Florida. Charles Cross out of Mississippi, the big tackle out of Mississippi State, JT Daniels, hey, quarterback out of Georgia. Jordan Davis, defensive tackle out of Georgia. Jerion Ely, running back out of Ole Miss. So you see lots of players here that are pretty darn solid. Who are you looking at this year coming out of the SEC, Darren?
So all eyes are on Bryce Young, because he is filling in for Mac Jones. He has a huge responsibility on his shoulders, and he's going to be the one that probably takes Alabama to the promised land and eventually to the college football playoffs. So all eyes are certainly on Bryce Young, and it just goes to show you that, like I said, Southern California quarterbacks could be a cut above the rest. You also have to watch out for all of LSU. Like last year, they had themselves a down year, and then Ed Ogeron, like I said, is a coach to watch for. So he's a fantastic coach, but we'll see if he can get LSU back to being close to being on top. And then don't sleep on Auburn as well, considering they have a new coach. They unfortunately said goodbye to the Gus bus, but for Auburn, they've got themselves they have quite an interesting schedule early on, as they face Penn State on September 18th. That should be a little bit of a fun matchup. And then you mentioned Arkansas. Last season, they did something they hadn't really done. They won an SEC game. And I forget who they beat. I want to say it was like Mississippi State, if I'm not mistaken, or Ole Miss. Either way, Arkansas could be back on the rise. So just takes one good win to get back on track.
Well, I certainly think, man, there's lots of talent here, and definitely the SEC is going to be fun to watch. Last but not least, we are talking ACC football with 10 minutes to go here, Terran. Now, the ACC is a little, and I'm talking a little, like maybe just a little bit. Every conference has their monsters, but the big one is gonna be, of course, Clemson here. But man, if it's not refreshing to see some of these teams who haven't been much of anything actually becoming something, it's very refreshing. So, in the ACC this year, I've got in the Coastal Division North Carolina, who has really been something. Can they be something this year? Probably not. But are they going to be good enough to possibly win the Coastal? Yeah, I think so. They could. Miami is actually right there as well. I mean, man, 20 years ago, the days of old when Miami was just dominating everybody. Well, those days are gone. Regardless, Miami is still, now they've climbed because they've had their days of bad too, but they've actually come pretty far. And I can say they're a contender for the Coastal. Virginia Tech, and then Virginia. Pittsburgh, Georgia Tech, and then Duke. Sorry, Blue Devils. But I got to say that this is, I think, a realistic look at the Coastal for this year. Then at the Atlantic, yes, there's no secret. Clemson is the monsters they're going to continue to be. We have Boston College, who I think is actually going to be able to put up some good fights to everybody this year. Maybe not Clemson. I mean, I like to see a good game, but I'm not sure they're going to overthrow Clemson. Then they have NC State, Florida State, Louisville, Wake Forest, and Syracuse. So those are my orders there. And moving on over to the championship, I have Clemson over North Carolina in the ACC championship, and there you have it. So, Terran, what you got for us in the ACC?
So for the ACC, I guess I'm kind of surprised. I actually just found this out now. Notre Dame is not playing in the ACC anymore, which is kind of disappointing. I would have liked to see them in the ACC again because they're in the ACC for most of the other sports. So anyway, for the ACC, it's pretty much going to go through Clemson. And Dabo Swinney has just done a fantastic job. Like I said, DJ Uiagalelei is going to be, I probably butchered that last name, but he's taking over for Trevor Lawrence when it comes to quarterbacking for Clemson. And the Atlantic portion of the ACC is pretty much in the hands of Clemson. The Coastal one is a little bit more wide open, but for now it's looking like UNC is the favorite. But the big question for UNC is, can it actually come up big in certain games? Because I remember they lost to Florida State last year, which was kind of a bit of a bummer. And you have to wonder, how did that happen, and what could have gone better for them? They also lost to Virginia as well. So, all in all, for this UNC team, they have to play a little more loose, relaxed, and free, considering they had quite a bit of close games. They had to go down the wires with Boston College. Like I said, they lost a close one to Virginia. Their Bluegrass rivalry, well, not the Bluegrass rivalry, their rivalry with Duke was pretty much one-sided. They barely got past Wake Forest. And while they did come close to knocking off Notre Dame, they pretty much just weren't good enough. So for UNC, that's the big question. Can they stay consistent in the ACC? So I think it would pretty much be down to UNC and Clemson, but don't sleep on Miami as well. Miami has some solid players as well, so we'll see.
Completely agree, Darren. It's not the easiest division to pick in the Coastal, but definitely in the Atlantic, I think it's kind of a no-brainer. But regardless, man, hopefully we get some good football here. In the ACC, this is John Kinney's article that was written on May 3rd of this year, and yeah, we have some players to watch. Bubba Bolden, safety out of Miami. Andrew Booth, corner out of Clemson. Taylor Davis, defensive tackle out of Clemson. Akeem Ekwonu, I believe, offensive tackle out of NC State. Emeka Emezi, wide receiver out of NC State. Joshua Ezeudo, guard out of North Carolina. Zay Flowers, wide receiver let's see, wide receiver out of Boston College. So there's some big-time players to watch. Who are you watching this year in the ACC?
So like I said, all eyes will be on DJ Uiagalelei.
Yeah.
I think that guy is going to be something special. And he actually was pretty impressive in the match against Boston College. Yes, Clemson had to rally back, but they were down by quite a bit against a determined Boston College team. And he almost pulled out the victory against Notre Dame. So I think with a few more reps and with some more experience, I think DJ is going to be something to watch for Clemson. So we'll have to see with him. And then my eyes will probably be on the second best team in the ACC, whether it's Boston College or Florida State. I want Florida State to actually be back to its days when they had Jameis Winston. I know it's going to take a while for them to turn back the clock, but I trust the Seminoles. Like, who knows? Maybe this could be the year, but we can't get too worked up on them. But I wouldn't sleep on Florida State as well. My eyes are also on them to see if they can actually get back to relevancy. And then for the ACC, I also wouldn't necessarily sleep on Virginia or Pitt. Those are kind of my dark horse picks to pick the ACC Coastal. But for now, it's pretty much everyone versus Clemson in the ACC.
That's, without a doubt, probably the best way to say it. So, with that said, Terran, can you believe we've reached the end of the show, man?
Yep, time flies when you're talking college college football.
It sure does, man. And yeah, our apologies for the crappy audio. It's just, I don't know, y'all. Every single year, Spreaker is just getting harder to use. And don't be surprised if you see us on another platform coming up in the coming years, maybe even this year, because it's really annoying. But we will, just keep on giving it chance after chance. But for sure, man, it could be an issue on my end, but we apologize for the choppiness of the show that Gina brought to our attention. I know it's audio, it sucks, but our apologies for that. But if you hung with it and listened in regardless of this nasty choppiness, we really appreciate you guys for being a part of today's show and for listening in, and we'll definitely fix that for next week. But with that said, Terran, any final words before we're out of here? And of course, where can all these diehard college football fans find you?
So, I don't know if I mentioned this, but Texas and Oklahoma are going to be great additions to the SEC, and I'm going to be interested to see how they do in the up-and-coming years.
That's right.
But right now, this is kind of going to be their somewhat dress rehearsal before they get on to the SEC, and that joining the SEC will benefit them quite nicely. So as for where you could find me on Twitter at Terran Rodriguez1. And that's pretty much where I post all my main content. You can also follow Set Point at set_point IE. And then you can also follow the SoCal Supreme Sports Show on Twitter at SoCal Show IESR. So that's where you can find me in my content.
Good stuff there. And yeah, our apologies, y'all. We'll get to the Alliance next week. Definitely some teams that are moving on the move and really cool stuff. Our apologies, we're different out of time tonight, but so we'll get to that next week, of course, with our picks and all kinds of good stuff next week. So you can also follow me over there at THEE_LB5 there on Twitter. Follow the show, of course, at 3 and Out. CEIE, of course, is all spelled out. Once again, at 3 and Out. CEIE on Twitter. Show some love, y'all. Like I said, we'll be back next week. Our deepest apologies for that crappy choppiness, but y'all know how it goes, y'all. Cue the music, because we're out of here! Alright, y'all, it has been real. We definitely want to thank you for coming out tonight and being a part of it and showing us love. So, with that said, y'all, thanks again. Of course, absence coming back next week. Here on Ice Short Radio. But we'll be back at it. We'll be back at it next week. We'll be back at it. Yeah, on a normal spot for the time. With that said, y'all, that's see y'all next week, y'all. Until then, take care, and as always,